Aloha and welcome to Virtual Live at the Legislature. I'm Carolyn Tanaka, and joining me this morning all the way from the Big Island is Representative Richard Onishi. He represents District 3, Kea'au, Hilo, Curtistown, and Volcano. He is also the chair of the House Tourism Committee and a member of the House Select Committee on the Economy and Financial Preparedness. So needless to say, Representative Onishi, you are a very busy man. And you have a lot of knowledge, and that's why I wanted you with us here today. I would like to start by talking about the House Select Committee, if you could tell us a little bit about that and how it is going.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn, and aloha to you and to all the viewers. The House Select Committee was set up by Speaker Scott Saiki. It involves legislators, leaders in the business community from all types of businesses, the restaurants, the grocery stores, the banks, transportation, all different sectors. But it also includes some of the social services providers, people who are servicing the homeless, people who are doing food banks, other types of nonprofits that are trying to raise funds to help the needy. As well as, some of the leaders of industry. We have like the farmers and ranchers. We have now the fishing industry. So we're trying to incorporate all facets of our economy and planning on how will we open up the Hawaii economy and try to get us back to some kind of economic normal.
Well, and I do know that the committee has made great strides. In fact, when it was started back in February, while everybody was taking care of the scientists were taking care of the medical side, it was the House's thought that we need to look, the next big step is going to be the economy and reopening it. And I understand that every industry is hurting, but you heard last week that the farmers and ranchers are having a particularly difficult time.
Right. So Speaker has assigned, so Speaker and Peter Ho from Bank of Hawaii are the co-chairs. So they make assignments to various committee members to focus on certain sectors or certain issues and concerns. So last week, Representative Della Balati and myself, we were assigned to look into the agriculture, the assistance to farmers and ranchers, and how we would begin to support that industry in feeding, I guess, to address the issue about how we become more sustainable in terms of our own food production. So this past week, yesterday, I actually reported on some of the programs that are available and funding available to farmers and ranchers who were initially excluded from the original CARES Act, the third version. So in this fourth version, they are now included, and some of the programs are, well, most of the programs are being run to the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it includes direct assistance to the farmers, funding to purchase farm commodities to feed people, assistance to food banks, direct assistance to the government and some entities in terms of helping, like, for example, SNAP benefits and the doubling up or the increase of benefits to the public provided by the state, and also including the now payroll protection for farmers and ranchers, etc. So.
Well, with that help, it's still going to be a tough haul for the industry. And I also wanted to, as the chair of the tourism committee, I mean, a lot has changed very quickly with that industry. And in fact, they're saying it may not come back for a year and a half. What do we do in the meantime? It's the #1 driver.
So the industry, through the leadership of Chris Tatum, who's the president for the Hawaii Tourism Authority, they have been really proactive on a number of fronts. First of all, in terms of trying to address the the orders by the governor in terms of self-quarantine. So they've been very active in monitoring visitors that are coming to Hawaii and staying in the hotels. We've had recently some issues with people following that order, so they're much more active. They're doing even more phone calls. They are calling hotels and people regularly every day to ensure that those people are following the order. But they've also been working with the stakeholders in the industry, trying to prepare them, trying to make sure that they are prepared and have plans for moving forward. Another area they're working on is how are we going to address travelers coming to Hawaii? Because we don't just have visitors that come to Hawaii, we have our residents that leave Hawaii, go to other destinations, and then come back. And as hopefully everybody knows, the bulk of the people that were infected that had come to Hawaii were local residents, not visitors from other places. The bulk of the people, something like 70% or so, were our residents coming back to Hawaii.
Well, travel is the key in as far as this virus is concerned. Let me, in the last couple of minutes that we've got left, in a post-COVID world, when we are finally allowed out of our houses, what do you think is the future? What will tourism look like in a post-COVID world?
We've talked about that, and I think the number one thing that we're going to have to establish is some kind of a screening process for travelers coming to Hawaii. We need to ensure to our local residents that the people that are coming to Hawaii are not carrying the virus. So we've talked about how to implement a pre-departure screening or requirement. We've talked about upon arrival, what that kind of screening might look like and how that would be implemented. As you know, in terms of travel, we're not just dealing with state of Hawaii requirements. We also have federal laws and requirements. And, most people know we could not stop visitors from coming to Hawaii because of the federal laws that are in place. So we're going to need federal assistance because we're talking about how do we screen people coming before they even get on the plane. And then what do we do once they get here? So I think is going to be really important. Yeah.
And I'm sure this conversation will definitely be continuing on, but it'll have to continue on without you and me today, Richard, because we are at the end of our time. But thank you for joining us. And I'd also like to quickly plug that Richard, Representative Onishi, will also be on a news show that we have started that will be running on Olelo, Channel 49. It is a half-hour news and information program hosted by Representative Della Al-Baladi, the next news anchor for Hawaii News Now. And Richard will be on the show, and it will air every Wednesday at 12 noon on Channel 49. Thank you for joining us, and come back next week, Tuesday, for Live at the Legislature. Aloha.
Aloha and welcome back to Live at the Legislature for our weekly Hawaii State Senate segment. I'm Jesse Broder Van Dyke, the Communications Director for the Senate, and my guest this week coming to us live from Kahului is Senator Keith-Agaran, who represents Central Maui. Thanks so much for being with us this week, Senator.
Sure, good morning.
Maui's been in the news a lot because of the COVID cluster at Maui Memorial Medical Center. What's the latest with that?
Yeah, it's not the kind of news you want. We're optimistic that they're doing better. The problem, of course, for the entire community is we don't know, and that's part of that's sort of troubling for a lot of us because in order to get confident, develop some confidence that things are doing better at the hospital. I wish we weren't relying on rumors. I wish we were relying more on information that was coming directly from the hospital. But in fairness, I think they brought in some experts from Kaiser's hospitals on the mainland to help them make some changes, address the problems that led to the cluster. And they're doing the right thing. They're working on some of the more important people, and that's the patients and their workers. Because we know at this time, I can't imagine the kind of trauma and emotions that they're going through, and with this kind of spotlight that's on the hospital right now. And I hope that we'll be able to support them, but I do wish that we would get more information from the hospital on what they've done to make changes in order to assure people that our hospital remains safe and efficient and operational.
And that is the primary hospital on the island of Maui.
It's the only acute care hospital. I think there are some beds that for emergency purposes and long-term care at Kula, and the other hospital in the system is in Lanai. And thank God there's been no COVID-19 positives in Lanai to date.
So Maui Memorial is able to see patients now, and they're working through this issue.
They are, but like all the hospitals, they haven't been taking elective surgeries, so I think they've limited the kind of services that are available, and right now there are no visitors being allowed at the hospital.
One big frustration for a lot of people who've lost their jobs during this emergency is the backlog at the unemployment system. The state received over 200,000 claims within a month, creating a huge backlog. What's the latest on that?
Well, I think things are getting better. I mean, my sister told me this morning that she worked for a tour operator and she finally got her first unemployment benefits today, and that included the federal benefit. Her boyfriend hasn't been as fortunate. I mean, he lost his job at the end of March, and she still hasn't successfully even established an account for him. So there's still a lot of people out there that are trying to get into the system and use it. And we're hopeful that the efforts that have been taken by the department will soon maybe it won't quickly get the backlog down. I mean, you can't do that with the number of claims that were made. I think they went from, someone told me, 700 claims a month to what happened in March and April, up to 240,000 claims. So you can't expect that they'll be able to get that backlog done, but they're working hard. I know that they cleared 10,000 claims just the other day.
And I know we have over 36 Senate staffers who volunteered to help with this effort. And I had the opportunity to go down and see some of them at work last week. And so everybody's doing all they can to get people their money as soon as we possibly can. One thing that another side effect of this COVID emergency was we had to suspend the 2020 legislative session. I know you and your colleagues on the leadership team have been talking about the possibility of going back or adjourning. What's the latest on the session?
Well, there's no date been set, but I think there's still an intent to go back. In the meantime, I know that the different committee chairs are informally having discussions with their counterparts. Myself, I've been talking to Kyle Yamashita, my counterpart on CIP projects in the House, and we've been discussing the different ways of maybe funding or providing additional projects if we happen to go back and can work on that part of the budget. I would expect that when we go back, though, it'll be a very different kind of session. And obviously, you won't be able to bring in the public as easily as you did before the circumstances that we're in. And we're also looking right now at the legal requirements for us to be all physically present on the floor, and that's going to be that could be one of the big challenges for the 8 members who live in the neighbor islands, with the travel restrictions and with the social distancing requirements that are going to probably continue through the summer and maybe into the fall. Those questions still haven't been ironed out. And remember, it takes 2 to tango. We have to have the House come with us.
Mm-hmm. And you're on the Ways and Means Committee, and all the budget projection you've been working on earlier this year are now all out the window.
Yeah, and then we, depending on when we go back in, there may be a new projection already, because I know the Council on Revenues is scheduled to meet again in May. We may be right. I think the governor mentioned that he's looking at dealing with a $1.5 billion deficit. In an $8 billion operating budget, that's a big chunk of money to try and find to balance the budget.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes left. We've been under this state shelter-at-home order for almost a month and a half now. How are people on Maui dealing with this?
I think it's fair to say that everyone's tired of it, and in the best of all worlds, we wish that we were going back to work and reopening. But I know that we won't be able to do that quickly. I think the governor noted that we're not quite where we need to be in terms of the steps that the federal government has set out. I mean, we are not seeing declines in the number of new cases for 2 weeks. We still haven't stepped up all the testing that would be helpful in looking at reopening. And even when we do reopen, I know that we won't have that V-shaped return that some people are talking about. I think it's going to be very gradual, and I think it's going to be looking at parts of the economy that cater to the local population. I don't think we can expect to have visitors coming back, especially not in the numbers that they were coming in just a couple of months ago. I'm frankly surprised that people are still coming in.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like we're going to have to deal with a new normal for months and years to come, but we're moving in that direction, and it's great to see that the numbers of cases have been relatively low in our state compared to the rest of the country. Thank you so much, Senator Gil Keith-Agaran, for joining us live from Kahului. We appreciate you being here this morning. We'll be back next week on Live at the Legislature. Aloha.
Aloha.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record Live at the Legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Aloha kakahiaka, and welcome to this very special episode of Live at the Legislature. Joining us today is Representative Val Okimoto. She's the rep from Mililani, Mauka, and Mililani, and also serves as a member on the Committee on Lower and Higher Education. And with us for the first time, I think, ever on the show is a staff member joining us from the windward side of Oahu is Eric Kamanu. He is a senior legislative analyst for the House Minority Research Office. Good morning to both of you, or all three of you.
Well, Eric and I had a little stint a little earlier. Eric was on the show once with me when you were out.
He said he would never come back, and here we are today.
I think I laughed the most on that episode ever.
Well, Rep, we'll start off with about a week and a half ago, the governor had proposed a pay cut 20% across the board for teachers and first responders. Can you comment on that? I know you had a pretty strong quote.
Yeah, really quickly, and I know that that's kind of been, with the way COVID is working, that becomes outdated news, but there was a pretty big public outcry about that statement that was made by the governor. And, I've always been pretty vocal about supporting our educators and our first responders. So when that was stated, I actually felt it was a pretty outrageous and devastating thing to say, especially when I think about the morale of these people who are going out each and every day. They're the ones at the front lines, and also the educators who are behind the scenes working so hard. And we had just, in the legislature, fought hard to have a pay increase go through the bills. So that was something that I was pretty unhappy about. And I'm hoping, I think since then, it's kind of taken a backseat, and maybe that won't be, something that actually goes through. I'm hoping that we know that we have to adjust the budget with everything that's happened with the economy, but I would hope that we would find a different way. We have to find a different way other than, slashing the pay of our first responders and our educators.
And it's great that you have your daughter right next to you, because that leads to my next question.
So the last time I was on, I went to the office because I found a little corner. I put myself in the timeout corner, but they'll find me. If I lock a door, they'll knock on it. So this is my little 7-year-old that I'm homeschooling right now, trying really hard to homeschool.
So how has that been? You're a former teacher. You're always an advocate for the DOE. So how has it been now teaching your daughter while also having all of the responsibilities of being a representative?
It's kind of been a double-edged sword. I love that I get to be home and do it. I just wish I could dedicate, all of my time to it. And I think it's funny how when I see people posting on social media or others commenting on how they realize how much work goes into teaching children, and I giggle because I know how hard it is. And so it takes balance, and you can see that it's not always fun, perfect, but I'm just grateful for any of the resources that the schools are providing me. I wish I could sit down, like I said, and give all of my time to her, but that's not my only priority. So it has been a juggle trying to balance working in the legislature, making sure that my constituents' needs are being met, and also making sure, because it's very important to me that they get their education. So she has a sister who's also in the DOE, that's a 7th grader. So it's fun, challenging. I miss those days, but at the same time, I'll be honest, the other day I was a little stressed. I felt like maybe I wasn't doing enough for them. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. So
Excellent.
Some amounts of friends joining us right now.
And so it's great that we have Eric here, because I wanted to transition to the unemployment claims. We heard that in the last segment, and Eric is one of the House staffers who has volunteered to process the over 300,000 unemployment claims that we've had. And so, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about how that's been?
Sure. So I started last week on Thursday, and it's kind of evolved over time. You can kind of see that they're trying to get the process down, make it faster. So this last time that I went there, it seemed that they had a better cheat sheet. So instead of having like a one-on-one training, because they want to keep people like not so close together, to prevent any spread of diseases, that we just work off of this cheat sheet. So that was a lot better. The room is gigantic, and at any given time, there's hundreds of people in there. I think it's working pretty well as intended. There are some things that I think, everything can be improved. I think they're doing good there. One of the things I noticed is that what we're doing in there is more of like an expedition, like an expediting process. So we get the claims, go through it, and filter out inaccuracies in it, so it's more streamlined down the road. So like a lot of those, if they have issues, they have to go back to DLIR, where they have to make corrections and do follow-ups. There are a pretty good amount of them. So if we do 10, if you get like a sheet of 10 claims, and you do all of them, 9 of them got to go back to DLIR to have followed up on them. So I can see how that is frustrating for a lot of people. There are slow moments, particularly with the website, which we have no control over. But yesterday when I was there, they did announce that they're opening up the call center downstairs. So they're going to be having a lot of staff taking calls now. So hopefully that's going to give people a little bit of ease to walk them through the process of how to get it, tell them exactly where holdups are and stuff like that.
So can you walk us through what a typical day is? I think you go in at 6 in the morning, and the National Guard checks you in, and
yeah,
can you run us through that?
That was new. So when I went in yesterday, I got there like 6:30, and I pulled into the parking structure, and two National Guard guys came in, and they're like, ID. I was like, oh, here's my badge. And then so went back upstairs, parked, and then you have to go and you have to get your temperature checked. In the temperature check, I don't know if I just got there at a transitional moment. There was like eight National Guard people like in a row like this. So it's like you're walking into some like secure facility. And then I just went upstairs, and they're all really nice. The National Guard guys are all really nice. So we get up there, you sign in, and then you go to a computer. It's organized by rows and columns. You get there, you go pick up a sheet of claims, and you just start processing. There's certain sheets for Uber, Lyft drivers, military, federal employees, and then everybody else. So depending on what their previous employment was, depends on how we start sorting things like that.
And how long is your term of volunteering for this?
Well, they ask you to do a week, which makes sense because once you start getting the hang of it, they want to keep you there longer because you're going to be more efficient, and you could potentially start helping new people who come on help process claims. So I'll be, since I'm missing today because I'm here, I'm going to be doing this whole week, and then I'll just do an extra one next week.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for volunteering. It's a crazy time. I think we've got about 30 seconds left. Representative Okimoto, you have a town hall this week, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Correct. I wanted to quickly plug in. I've been able to join some events in my community. So I've been able to go to one of my schools and help with the grab and go lunches. Want to encourage parents, if you have a child any age that needs to go and just kind of get out of the house, that's something I've been doing with my children. I also was able to volunteer with a food bank, Hawaii Food Bank, through a partnership with YMCA, as well as at the schools in my district. But we do have a town hall meeting coming up. We're scheduled to have a virtual town hall this Thursday at 6 p.m. Our first time. You both should be there with me, I think. And we have invited Congressman Ed Case, as well as Superintendent Dr. Christina Kishimoto. And I'm also going to have probably one of my representatives' colleagues from the Education Committee join me. So we're encouraging everybody to join us. This is the best way for us to reach out to our constituents at this time, but also tap into, these other people in leadership roles that can help us figure out our way as we navigate through this COVID-19. We're all going through this together. And I've said that from the beginning. Together, we can come through this and come out on the positive end. It's the only way we're going to get through it. So join us on Facebook Live Thursday, 6 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. Eric, it's good to have you on the show. Hopefully we'll have you again next time. But thanks again to the Olelo staff and for everyone here. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Bye. Thank you.